Style Nary with AB Boxing News here in New York for Triple G versus Sergey Derevchenko with the one and only Eddie Hearn. Eddie, welcome back to New York. How's everything?
I like your glasses.
Thank you. Trying to be like you.
Let me try them on. They're probably a bit too small for me because I've got a big head. What do you think? Yeah?
No contact, sir?
Yeah, I like that. I look like Ronnie Cray. You won't know who that is. Yeah.
Talking about Triple G
Yeah.
fighting Derevchenko, a very tough fight. You know, congratulations again on getting Triple G on Matchroom co-promotions. You know, tell us about what Triple G preparation like for Saturday night.
Good. I mean, I don't get too much involved with his camp. Certainly with Gennady, you haven't got to worry about his preparation. You haven't got to worry about whether he's putting the work in, whether he's training hard enough, because he's a great pro. I think this is a brilliant fight. I really do. You know, you saw the Derevchenko fight against Danny. I think because of the Andrade Rozier sort of mix in there, they knew each other so well, never really gelled, and Danny fiddled him around and boxed him well. You know that Gennady is not going to try and fiddle him around. It's going to be an all-out war, and I think that Derevchenko will oblige. You know, he likes to stand and fight. He's got some power as well. He's got a good chin. I think it's going to be a war, and there's a lot of pressure in this fight for Gennady because he really must win this fight. You know, it's obviously a chance to become a two-time world champion and go into a big 2020.
In a perfect world, in Eddie Hearn's world, how would you map out after this fight? He has 4 fights left with DAZN. How would you map it out to end his deal with DAZN?
Well, I think that I would like to see him fight obviously on Saturday. Then I'd like to see him fight in January and defend that title, and then fight Canelo and Cinco de Mayo, and then maybe move up and fight Callum Smith or Billy Joe Saunders. You know, there's loads of fights out there for him, but he doesn't want to talk about Canelo fight, you know, publicly, because he wants to focus on Saturday night, and he's probably bored and tired of talking about that fight. But we must really try and put the pressure on that fight, not by me standing on a soapbox going, "Whoa, he beat him twice," and because that's going to piss Canelo off, right? And then he's going to end up saying even more, right? So you've got to put in a performance that the fans turn around and say, Canelo, we want that fight, because Canelo is an honourable guy who fights the best. Although he hasn't given the fans the real one they want, he's given you Danny Jacobs and Sergey Kovalev. That's his 2019. That's another impressive year, you know. So you can't knock Canelo. You've got to respect him. But I believe if there's enough demand for that fight from the fans, he will make that fight. But to do that, you've got to put in a great performance. You know, if you don't put in a good performance against Derevchenko, it gives the fans the opportunity to say, "Oh, well, maybe he'll fight someone else." If you go and look great and you do what you do, which is go and knock people out, the fans will say, "You know what, we must have number 3," and then I think it will happen.
In retrospect, looking at last year, it seemed almost inevitable Canelo fighting at light heavyweight. Now he's fighting at light heavyweight. Have you had a conversation with Triple G about having him possibly fight 175? We know he hasn't tested the markets at 168.
I think he needs to go. If he's going to do that, he should go to 68. And we've got some great fights for him there. You know, we've got Callum Smith, we've got Billy Joe Saunders. They're great fights for him to go and try and become a two-time world champion. But really, we mustn't look past Derevchenko, because there's a lot of people in boxing who just think, you know, the questions start coming in. Gennady's getting old. You know, he had a couple of tough fights there with Canelo. Is his chin still there? Does he still have the freshness? So he's got to win this fight on Saturday, because all those other fights are irrelevant.
Many fans are trying to marinate Canelo versus Spence. You know, Spence, incredible victory over Sean Porter. They're saying Spence Canelo at 160, but what about Spence Triple G at 160? Is that a fight that you would like to co-promote?
And I don't think that Errol Spence will be at 147 for too much longer. You know, I mean, I don't think that his performances are sometimes doing himself justice. Saw a lot of stuff on Twitter about him saying, "Oh, I'm never ballooning up like that again in between fights." You know, it was obviously difficult for him to make the weight. So I think he's going to be a better fighter at 154. I think Spence against Golovkin, Spence against Canelo, they're just fantasy matchups at the moment, you know. I think the reality is, we should be pushing harder for Spence against Crawford. You know, that's a fight boxing needs. And we should be when you look at 160, 168, there's so many fights to be made within the DAZN circle there. So DAZN are really bossing the 160 and 168 division, and PBC are bossing that 147. Really, you know, if you're not with the PBC at 147, you know, and you're a champion particularly, you know, how do you make those fights? That's why Top Rank and Crawford are in tough spots at the moment.
I love the fact I seen one of your interviews. I think yesterday you said that Crawford's turned into a B-side. How does he deal with somebody like Sean Porter? Because anybody that fight with Sean Porter, it's a tough fight.
It's a great fight. I mean, that's another fight I'd love to see. But the issue you've got is that, and the truth of the situation is that Al Heyman doesn't want to give Bob Arum or Terence Crawford an inch, right? So what I mean by that is, really, Crawford against Porter is a pay-per-view fight on ESPN, right? So why not try and make that fight? Al won't give them Sean Porter to allow them to do pay-per-view and to allow Crawford because he wants to freeze them out. It's not that he's an arsehole, it's just that's sometimes business and the boxing business that we live in. But I love Crawford. I mean, for me, like I think if Crawford was in the PBC mix and I was Al Heyman, I would probably make Crawford against Porter, and then if he won that fight, then make the Spence Crawford fight. But look, again, it's none of my business because I'm not in that mix. So we're worried about our mix, which is mainly at middleweight and super middleweight.
Give me a second. Yo, press stop again. In regards to Demetrius Andrade, I've seen one of his team members on Twitter say that they wanted to fight Billy Joe on November 9th. You know, how true is that, and why wasn't that fight made? It's such a big fight.
You know, Ed Farris, his manager, sent me an email like a week ago and said, look, we'll fight him. The budget's not there for that fight. You know, it's a big fight. We can make that fight early in 2020. I think Demetrius right now is probably a bit frustrated because he wants those big fights. And, you know, we've got 4 guys around that mix in Callum Smith, Billy Joe Saunders, Demetrius Andrade, and Danny Jacobs. But, you know, who don't really, particularly Callum, Demetrius and Billy Joe Saunders, they're not, you know, people don't not queuing up to fight those guys. They're good, they're dangerous, they're tricky, you know, so I think that Demetrius is probably thinking, when am I going to get my big one? It will come, but we've got to keep him active in the meantime, which we're doing.
Are you interested in doing Paulie Malignaggi versus Arthur Leboeuf boxing?
He texted me about that. I don't know. I mean, look, it does eyeballs, you know.
That's a crossover event. You're going to bring new...
It is, so we'll see.
Lastly, Eddie, you did beat me last time in a rap battle. We're not going to do a rap battle again, but I do want to issue a new challenge with you.
Yeah?
December 7th. I know your team, Joshua. I'm left with Ruiz. But let's make this interesting. I grew my hair purposely just for you. If Team Joshua and yourself wins, you shave my head off. If Ruiz wins, I shave your head off.
My hairline's not too good, you know. Like I'm a bit worried if I shave it off, it will show the true hairline. So we'll see. Let me think about it. Yeah.
If you win, you shave my head off.
Okay.
All right, deal?
Okay.
All right. Eddie Hearn just declared that he accepted it. Style Narrative, AB Boxing News with Eddie Hearn.
Cheers, mate. Good to see you.